So welcome, Billy.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
It's my absolute pleasure. I say that to everyone. It's my absolute pleasure. I honestly absolutely love chatting with so many amazing people. And as we were talking about before we got on, there's so many varied subjects and so many, just varied topics to inspire people to take action. And, I love what you're doing. I can't wait to unpack it.
I love what you're doing. I think the podcast is awesome, and it is inspiring. Some of your guests are wow, just amazing.
Well, let's have the Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah. There we go. We're done. That's it. Yay. Everybody just listen to all the episodes and you'll be inspired. There we go.
I love it. Now, you've got an amazing story. I found you on LinkedIn just by accident through another animal advocate friend of mine, and then I saw you commenting on something, or she might have shared one of your posts. I thought, wow, who is this woman? What's she doing? And I love what you're doing, because one of my biggest, oh God, the thing that hurts my heart the most is how many dogs are in pounds, and how many dogs are given up, and we've got two rescues here, and they're not easy. When you first get them, there's a lot of work to do, but I just can't. It breaks my heart seeing them in pounds. So the work that you do is absolutely critical, and I don't know. I know you can't save them
Thank you.
all. My
Well,
pleasure.
excuse me. Sorry, I just got a
It's all
little
right.
frog in my throat. Yeah, well, I appreciate that because I know you are a huge animal lover. You have a small ark of your own.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it is. It's a challenging industry because it is failing the dogs. It's a broken system and it's failing the dogs. And to be able to have this, oh my gosh, solution that I just created, um, over the last 3 decades has really, yeah, it's really been quite the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. This solution I just created it sounds like you just did it last year, over the last 3 decades. I love it. I
Yeah,
love
I know. It's well, it has been a journey. I started 3.5 decades ago. I guess, yeah, around there. Just rescuing dogs like a lot of people do. They're just interested and they go to their shelter, they rescue dogs, and then that developed. I was actually in the States. I'm Canadian.
it.
But I was in the States with my boyfriend at the time, and we were sort of traveling in this renovated bus, and we took in these dogs and had sort of an unintentional rescue. And then I came back to Canada and I started a business in the industry, pet care, which was it's super popular, but back then it was pretty revolutionary. And I just noticed that a lot of people struggled with that adolescent dog. So sort of 6 months to 2 years. And that is what I focus on, which happens to be a lot of when the dogs are given up and surrendered. And that just kind of, it sort of stuck with me. Is, why are people so challenged with this stage? Why does everything go well during puppyhood? And common methods work well, and dogs get house trained and people are good. And then all of a sudden they hit that adolescent stage and what they were doing doesn't work. And dogs get given up and or they just come right in off the street, and people will adopt puppies. Puppies are cute, and which is, all dogs are cute. All
Yeah.
dogs are cute. But they're a little bit nervous to take in those adolescent dogs. So I just really focused on them and I tried to figure out why they were so challenging. So I connected with rescue organizations and took in these dogs and literally learned this method from hundreds of dogs, from bringing in these dogs. And I learned I never studied to be a behaviorist or a trainer. My goal was to figure out a solution so that there weren't so many people challenged by these dogs and we can understand them better. And that is what I did. And I created a method, an actual method that's grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy, although I didn't know that at the time. But it's called UPWARD Dogology, which is an acronym. It stands for Urban People with Adolescent and Rescued Dogs. And that's exactly what I deal with. So when I say urban, I mean, they don't have to live right in a city, but they live an urban lifestyle with their dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they treat them like family. The dogs are around the house. They do things with them, take them to their kids' events and things like that. And then the dogs are either adolescent or they're rescued or both. And they're dogs, not puppies. And that became UPWARD Dogology. And it shaped my whole unintentional career path.
I love it. And I agree with you. One of my big bugbears. See, I've got tons of bugbears. I'm one of these people that have a lot of bugbears, and I don't mind bloody sharing them either. I often end up down rabbit burrows and sharing my opinion. But you know, it's. I used to have a T-shirt that said "A dog is for life, not just for Christmas." You know, and I used to always wear it at Christmas. Eventually, it wore out, and I can't get another one. But it's. I get so frustrated with people like, oh, I just get a cute puppy for Christmas, you know, and then particularly now it's Christmas time, so I'm going to make sure this goes up at Christmas, so I can bloody talk about this in the intro and outro and make sure we tell
you go, girl.
God damn, if you get a puppy for Christmas, or don't buy one, like just don't freaking get one. By the time this hits, it's going to be too late. People have already found one. But you know, if you get a puppy for Christmas, it's going to turn into an adolescent, and it's going to turn into an adult dog, and they're not as cute as puppies. I think they are, but we've got to stop this mentality about, oh, just get a little cute puppy, because it's kind of like when someone has a baby. You know, they have a baby and it's everyone's like, oh, it's a cute little puppy. Keep doing that voice. And then it turns into a teenager and we want to kill it, but we don't. We don't send the teenagers to a bloody pound, you know, but for some reason we can't handle the dogs. And I believe dogs should be part of your family. And if you got them chained up out the back, or if you're not interacting with them, you shouldn't bloody have one. But anyway, now I've had my opinion.
No, I think it's totally great. I think it's interesting, though, if I can sort of be a little bit of the devil's advocate on this, just being in the industry. But I guess I see, because clients hire me, so I see the people that try. The people that hire me are the ones that don't want to give up, right? They're the ones that, there's got to be something different out there. There's got to be something that's going to work with my dog. So I see these people. Yeah. So I think what happens a lot is, and we don't have the stats on these. I've tried to get the stats. It's a bit challenging. I can from rescue organizations. It's a bit challenging from shelters because they're just not open. But how many people, when they do surrender or give up on their dog, how many people have had trainers? They've tried things. So I'm talking behavioral surrender or euthanasia, not anything else, because that's, my area of expertise. So yes, they become adolescent dogs and people get frustrated and they surrender. But the question is, why? Why are these people feeling like they have to surrender? Why are they feeling like it's their only option? It's quick to blame them and to say they're not patient. But 98% of my clients have hired 1 to 3 certified trainers. And it's not that those trainers were bad. They're good trainers. It's that the method doesn't work for the dog. The method works during puppyhood, and then based on brain development and the way that an adolescent dog, just like with children, right? They change and they grow, and we have to adapt our parenting styles, and we have to grow with the children. So the method that is in mainstream dog training is conditioning, and it's scientifically proven. Counter conditioning, classical conditioning, operant's the most common. So they do work, they are effective, but it has been scientifically proven that the way the dog's brain develops in the adolescent stage, they're not going to be as effective. And this is what CBT, when it does kick in. So when it's, I feel a little bit for some of these people who you're not patient enough, or you're not giving it enough time. A lot of them have tried everything that they've been told, and a lot of them, unfortunately, feel forced to kind of go to that dark side and use some maybe not great methods, or an e-collar, or something that they don't really want to, but they feel like, a prong collar, or some stuff that they don't want to. And by the time they find me and contact me, they're feeling really crappy. They're like, I got to do something.
Mm.
So, it's sort of that side of, is the system failing the people, and then blaming the people for failing the dogs.
Yeah,
That was a long way of working around that, but that's what I see.
No, I get that, and you've pulled me up, and you've made me rethink. I'm going to rethink that about all the other reasons. I think I'm just talking about a handful of people that I know, who just say, can't be stuff, and they get the staffies, the bulldogs, the pit bulls. They buy them, and then they're like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm talking about the ones who don't try. And the
totally, and they do. You're right. They say things like, oh, he grew. I mean, who gets a Great Dane and then doesn't realize that the dog's going to grow? Of course, it's going to grow, right? Yeah. And they'll come up with, no, it doesn't fit my lifestyle, or and it sounds like they're lazy, but really those all go back to behavioral, because a big dog isn't big if they're fitting into your family, and you can take them places and walk them and do things with them and include them in. But it's when people can't include them into their lifestyle, they have to walk their dog separate from their child, because their dog reacts, and their child's in a stroller, so they can't manage, and then they can't leave because the dog has separation anxiety, so they have to take their dog, but then it's not good in the car. It sounds as though that, again, and maybe I'm defending people too much, and again, I think people, and trust me, I'm not all people are great. I'm devil's advocate all the time, and I don't think everything's perfect and that people are great. And I know firsthand that there's horrible people out there that they suck and they're lazy. But a lot of it is, I think, people just feeling like they're out of options. They put the dog in the garage. They've tied the dog up outside. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. That's a very long and deep conversation, isn't it? Because it depends on so many variations. And I'm just thinking of one of our dogs, and it I won't go into it, but basically was just an indoor dog and then thrown out in the backyard for a year when a baby came along, and it took us a year to even get her to be able to look us in the eye properly. She was so,
like, that's amazing that you did that for a year. Like, sorry to interrupt, but that, you're right. A lot of people would give up on that dog, but on the same note, it's unfair that people have to spend a year, and unfair. Personally, I think it's unfair to the dog too, because the method I use is far quicker. Dogs integrate quickly. They bond. It's all about bonding and integrating quickly and getting over that anxiety and getting over those issues. And it is remarkable that you lasted a year and you didn't give up, but we can realistically see that a lot of people wouldn't. And that can be an awful lot to ask of somebody. They shouldn't give up.
She's a beautiful dog. I said from day one, wow, this dog's going to be hard work. But I said, I know she's going to be an amazing dog when she comes out the other side. I just saw it and she is just one super, super, super amazing dog. We're all in love with her, but
I'm so impressed. I'm so happy for you both.
Oh, me too. Now, you said you didn't have any formal training, and did you Do you, when you first started this and you tried to bring it into, because this happens with a lot of people that I talk to with Get Off the Bench. I'm not qualified, so they get all this imposter syndrome. Do you know, there's other people out there who are qualified, therefore no one's going to listen to me, you know, and they stop their business. Did you have to push through people saying, who are you? Where did you turn up from? You know, your method is shit. You just made this up. Like, did you have to push through a lot of that stuff? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an unregulated industry. So anyone can wake up and call themselves a dog trainer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that when I started. I never intended to be a behaviorist or a trainer. So when I started to realize that I had this method that was working really well, especially with aggression and anxiety adopted dogs, or like I said, the dogs that people had from puppyhood but were challenged at adolescent. And I started to look into what regular dog trainers were doing, simply because rescues were getting hold of me saying, can you work with this dog? You know, we've had them returned a couple times, or, you know, we've had calls from people and they want to surrender their dog to us. Can we just tell them to call you? So I became a trainer based on that. And my biggest supporters at the time were clients. And it was this great relationship because I was developing it as I'm working with clients. And then I started to study, because clients would say to me that they had other trainers. So they were talking to me about the methods that were in mainstream dog training, which I have to say has developed a lot. So it's moved a lot away from the negative, and the positive reinforcement training has developed, and it is great. But I wanted to know why what I was doing was different.
Yeah.
So I did study what they did. And I think what happened was there was this division between, you know, you've got your Cesar Millan, you've got your fear-free movement, without getting too much into it, but the industry is interesting. So what happened is the fear-free movement expanded immensely, which is great because it pulled a lot of people over from some, and I'm not saying all of Cesar Millan is negative at all. I'm just saying that there were these two divisions. And so then it became all these trainers got these certifications in positive reinforcement training or in conditioning methods, which is not what I do. But I didn't really know that at the time. I knew what I was doing was different. So I talked to psychologists and I talked to veterinarians. And it was actually psychologists that said to me, and they were clients, and there were clients that I had that were really knowledgeable in CBT, even if they were social workers or worked with children, addiction counseling, this kind of thing. And they were the ones who said, what you're doing is cognitive behavioral therapy. It doesn't follow the platform of conditioning methods. So that right there divided me in my industry, right? I can't go get their certifications because their certifications aren't in what I do.
Yeah.
And also, it again, as I'm still working through this, I'm not saying I want to be a behaviorist. I want my method to save dogs and to be part of mainstream dog education so that people have options depending on a number of different factors, the age of the dog, not so much the issue. I think, you know, other methods can address anxiety and aggression, but during that adolescent stage, CBT works best. So with every dog all the time, but you need these options. So my goal has been to introduce it. And yes, that's where the closed doors come.
Yeah.
Because the industry is making a lot of money off of trainers taking all their courses on conditioning methods or what they teach. And, you know, there's ego. There's, you know, and this has been a lot of a learning curve for me because it's really for me just about people having those options so that dogs live and people are happy and they get into homes and they can overcome anxiety and aggression in particular. So I don't know if I answered that question, but yes, there are a lot of closed doors, but there's the reason I continued is simply because of the support I have from mostly rescue organizations, clients, people with dogs, and veterinarians. Veterinarians are interesting. Behavioral veterinarians, not so much, because they are, again, part of that system that says you have to do conditioning methods.
Yeah.
And a lot of, the science, I went ahead and scientifically proved it on my own. Mostly, a big part of scientifically proving a methodology is application.
Yeah.
So about 200 clients a year. And those clients include veterinarians. I have veterinarians for clients. I have, animal experts for clients. And right down to people who are new to having a dog. But what happened is about 200 clients per year for over a decade. They're coming to me.
Mm.
It's hard to give it up. It's hard to say, you're getting closed doors from an industry that doesn't want change and doesn't want, they do probably want solutions, but they don't want to learn them from me, because who the hell is Billie Groom?
Yeah.
How can she possibly know this? But learning, you take Jane Goodall. Yes, she has, highly, she has, certifications from, degrees from schools now, but when she learned from the animals. She learned hands-on from the animals. And so many people have. So many people have learned their profession and learned what they know just from doing it, from being immersed in it, grassroots, right? I don't think they should feel like imposter syndrome. The only time you should feel imposter syndrome is if what you're doing isn't working, or what you're doing isn't needed. And what I do is needed, and it is effective.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying about you learn from application. I've been teaching and training for nearly 20 years, and it's, I can give a whole lot of information. And if someone's just sitting there listening to my information, they're not going to retain that at all. It's not going to happen. But if they apply it, that's when all the learning's done. I love that. Now, you seem to have this affiliation with adolescents, and you've got this, I don't know, you've got this kind of a connection with the dogs. You've obviously got a connection, or you wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't have been able to just work with you and blend with you straight away so that you could all learn all this other stuff. I'm going to say the name Peter Gibson. Now, you're writing a book at the moment, and you sent me just one little chapter, and it reduced me to tears, and I just sometimes think, how do people, about resilience and optimism, people pick themselves up and some people don't, and it's, you tell us a story, because I just love the way that it meshes in with what you're doing now. So I don't know. He contacted you in 2020. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks for that, because it was really, I never know whether to share that story or not. And like you said, I really only learned it in 2020. Peter Gibson called me. I didn't know who he was. It was just the phone rang in the day, and I answered it thinking it was going to be someone about dog training. And he was very polite, very nice and mature man, I could tell. And he just, he asked me if he could ask me a personal question. Sure. I don't have anything to hide. People can ask me anything they want to ask me. I'm going to tell them the truth. And it was the most simple question, was just, were you born with the name Leslie, and were you born in Port Credit, Ontario? Yes. It's not something I share a lot, but it's not something I hide. He said that he found me on LinkedIn. And at that time I had recently become active on LinkedIn. And he said, based on what I do for a living and just being so involved in animal activism and animal welfare, and my last name, which was still Groom at that time and still is. And he said he thought I might be this person that he's been trying to find and get a hold of. And he wanted to tell me a story. And he name dropped some people from where we're from. He said he's from there as well. And when he name dropped these people, I could tell he was about 10 years older than I was. And that gave me a little bit, okay. I mean, these people are good people. And he said, when I was 7 and he was 17, he had a family pet. His family was quite successful and a well-known family in this small town that I lived in. And he had a dog, and that dog, you know, dogs just, even though they're the best dogs, they just kind of take themselves for a walk one day, even though his dog never did that. The dog's name was Flash, and it was a boxer cross, just decided to take himself for a walk one day. And so he had lost his dog. He was looking for his dog, and the people in the community, you know, no Facebook pages back then of lost and found pets. So it was just word of mouth. And I guess my parents had taken in his dog and were looking for who the owner was. So people had told him, you know, that my parents had his dog. So over he came to my house, and there was his dog and my parents on the porch, and they were having this great chat, and he just loved them. They all got along amazing. And I asked him at that point, I said, was I there? Did you see me? And he said, well, I think you were, but you were really shy, and you probably were there, but I didn't really notice. Okay. And that was like me. I was shy, still am. And so he really had a bond and a connection with my parents. And so then he left. And the following night, my parents were killed by a drunk driver, which I knew when he was telling me this story. But he said it really affected him. It really, really just really affected him. And the part that he wanted to tell me was that sometime after that, him and his buddies were playing football in the school yard, and I had walked by, and I was by myself, and he knew it was me. He knew I saw him, and he knew, you know, he saw me, but he didn't say anything. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to treat me or what to say. And he said nothing. And he has forever felt guilty about that. He's forever felt guilty that he didn't know how to communicate or relate to me. And even though I was the same little girl, I was just, it was just a different situation. And he just really wanted to apologize for that. And he really wanted me to know that story. And for me, I'm still processing it, but it's interesting because I always feel that people should know how to communicate. And somehow, I guess maybe I put that over to dogs, maybe because it had to do with Flash. I don't know, but I think the whole thing is that when somebody has a different background or a different upbringing, or they're disadvantaged, it makes people feel uncomfortable, and they don't know how to relate to them, and they don't know how to talk to them and communicate or integrate them into their lives. That was pretty much my whole upbringing from them. People just treat you like you're differently. And I guess maybe I took that over to dogs, and I just want people to have a way of bringing them into their home, because I think a lot of people really do. They really want to bring these disadvantaged dogs into their home and into their life. And sometimes they're nervous to do that because they feel like they can't, or they don't know how to communicate. And that's exactly what UPWARD Dogology is. It's a formula that allows you to, formula is such a strong word, but it's not just, you know, dogs are nice and pat them. It is actually a way of doing that. And so Peter's story, I think, maybe for me, I'm still processing it, but it connected a lot of dots. And I think that's why I did what I do, why it was so important to me. And I met Peter. I went to Toronto. I had actually booked a flight to Toronto before that phone call with Peter. I was going for business reasons, and I hooked up with him, and we met, and we had dinner, and we talked, and it was awesome. And we're still in touch. And he's, yeah, one of my favorite people to talk to.
What a story. Like, I think that I have things from school, and I wish I remember I played at I used to play guitar, and I played at a place, a school reunion, and there was my grade 3 my grade 4 teacher was there, and I said, you changed my life, because I want to say thank you, because you got me into guitar, and I've had many decades of singing, and it's because of you, because you encouraged me. And you know what he said? He said, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "No, I'm telling you a good story." And he said, "No," he said, "that year I let your year level down." He said, "I had things going on in my life," and he said, I never gave as much as I should have to your year." And I said,
Oh,
"I never would have known that." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Never would have known that. I thought you were just amazing." And he said, "I've been carrying that for all these years."
oh my
Guilt.
goodness.
And it was only because I said to him, that I'm so thankful that he was in tears. He said, I've never been able to say it. And he said, "So thank you for allowing me to say that." And he said, it's plagued me for decades, so it's funny, that guilt that we carry, and at the end of the day, we carry it. You would never have known that Peter was like, it wasn't bothering you that he didn't say anything. And
no, not at all. Not at all. And no. And I think when people do struggle with how to connect with other people in situations, it's not their fault. And same with dogs, when they can't, it's not their fault. They need skills and tools to do that. They need a direction and how to do that. And I think a lot of people would step out of their comfort zone, whether it's with dogs, or whether it's with children, or whether it's with people with disabilities, or whatever that is important to them. When they have the skills and tools to help those, a lot of people will. And that's really my goal, is to share this with people that really want to make a difference in animal welfare, because they need this skill. It needs to be out there. And it's interesting. There was another woman who I've known since kindergarten. And on that same trip that I met Peter, I hooked up with her, and her and I have been, we've always been friends as such, but we've been in and out of friends. We're very, very different people, extremely different. And she wanted to get together, and we just had a blast. We went to a bar, and we went to this bar. we had a blast, but she said, I want to apologize too. She said, I treated you terribly a lot. Often it was more important to me to be popular and to be part of the popular crowd. And I've never been part of the popular crowd. I've always just done my own thing. And she apologized. It was really quite a dramatic trip on that level, but it is interesting to have those, I'm almost 57. So, and that was 2020. So to have all of that come around, and to really be able to put it into perspective, and
I don't think we'll ever finish. I think that for the whole of our lives, we need to be open to these kind of things coming up. And we're always, I think we know our life, and then we're like, well, now that just threw me a curveball, and I didn't know that.
Oh my goodness,
now
absolutely.
I need to process that. But tell us about cognitive behavioral therapy, but you've put the canine in the front of it as well. So for anybody who's not familiar with that, just explain what that is. I was going to say briefly, but I don't know.
I know, isn't it's interesting working with people using cognitive behavioral therapy, because as we start to do it and they start to apply it with their dog and they see the changes, there are so many people that come, oh, I do know it, or I've been struggling with this, or I had, issues, and they see it and they relate to it. So I do think a lot of people, particularly maybe in the last 5 years, it's become, or maybe 10 years, it's become more okay to talk about problems that we have or issues that we're overcoming.
Yeah.
And to have this approach in the workplace and in schools and with your children. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy, it sounds so serious, but it's actually an approach that is used to, in people, it's scientifically proven to rehabilitate habits, anxieties, keep saying but it's across the board. It's I have an older blind deaf dog, and right now she's walking around and trying to get herself comfortable. So half my brain is on whether my little, well, she's not little, she's quite large, from the streets of Costa Rica, just making sure that she's happy. And I think we all know when half our brain is on something else.
Yeah.
So squirrel, this is when I want to say squirrel, with the dogs, it's like squirrel and our brain goes over here. But something like PTSD, something like that, eating disorders. So cognitive behavioral therapy is different than conditioning methods. Conditioning methods are intended to teach right from wrong.
Yeah.
That's what they're intended to do. It's why, so through reinforcements. So you get a good reinforcement, you're more inclined to do that behavior than if you get a negative reinforcement. And I'm not going to get into how that's done and what's right and wrong in the dog world, but that as a psychology-based methodology, that's how it's intended to do. Counter conditioning changes behavior through association and desensitization. Cognitive behavioral therapy changes perception first, which is what I love about it. It assumes that you have an opinion and that you have feelings based on learned behavior, based on experiences. And instead of taking the approach of having, conditioning methods recondition, that's what they do. Cognitive behavioral therapy provides the skills to have them make that decision on their own. To just realize that and make that decision on your own, and to understand that your brain doesn't have to go into panic. Understand that you don't have to rely on aggressive measures in order to be okay or to achieve your goal. There's no reinforcements. It's a very challenging part for the animal behavioral world to understand, because they are told that dogs need to have a reinforcement, that they need to be conditioned. They do if you're using conditioning methods. That's how conditioning methods work. But if you use CBT, you don't need reinforcements. It's a whole different platform. It's a whole different way of working with them. So you're establishing skill sets that reset the brain. And once the brain is reset, which is what's so challenging in adolescence, it's like teenagers. It's like when you get people in that teenager stage where they're making decisions before they're processing. Their brain isn't working quick enough. And this is as well, I've studied the neuroscience of, not to the same level as neuroscientists, but taken courses on canine neuroscience. And there's a lack of connectivity between the parts of the brain that allow the brain to stop, reset, process, and make a better decision. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy does. So when you hear people say that they need to just be patient with their dog in the adolescent stage, what those professionals are trying to do is get people to wait till dogs become 2 years old or so, when those methods, conditioning methods, kick in and they become effective based on brain development. But we have that whole adolescent stage where the psychology driving conditioning methods just don't mesh, for lack of a better term, with what's happening in the brain. And that's why cognitive, so it's not just me saying that cognitive behavioral therapy is better.
Mm.
It depends on a lot of different factors, but we need to have all those tools in the toolbox to be able to work with dogs in a way that works with them
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really, really, really deep conversation. But all of this is every single thing we're talking about is about a deep conversation. One of the things that you've because I'm really interested in your work with rescue dogs, and it's not just the ones that are, the urban dogs, like the people have got a dog and it turns to adolescent and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do with it. They get you in. You've worked with some things that I really struggle with. I know I've got to hold my opinion back sometimes, but I can't for this one.
Go for it.
For example, the Galgos in Spain. Now, for anyone doesn't know, they're hunting dogs, and when they're done with them, they just hang them from a tree live and wait till they freaking die, like greyhounds, kind of that sort of dog. But it's disgusts me. The Yulin Festival, which is just, you can explain that, a dog meat trade. Like, these are cruel, and there's no this isn't about somebody not having a better method or somebody not having a skill set. This is just downright just disgusting cruelty. Now, how do these dogs even get rescued from these? Because the intention of the people handling them is to kill them, like that. And horribly, like they're not just I'm going to say it, sorry if this offends anyone, they're not just shooting them in the head and or giving them euthanasia. They're letting them to die in the most horrible suffering. So how do they even escape these people? Like, how does one come along and say, oh, here's a dog that's halfway through death, I might just save it? How does that even happen, that they can be rescued? Sorry if this
is such a good question.
And I'm going to have to put it I'm going to have to put at the start of this, at the info, bloody, warning. But anyway.
It is. It's brutal to see. I've seen a lot of brutal things, but on the same note, there are good people that do good. It really takes a village, and my hat's off to some of these people. I mean, they're right in there. Yes, and I have as well. To get a dog, it can be challenging to do it legally. It can be scary to do it illegally, and it can be emotionally challenging to take in these dogs. But yes, there's rescue organizations all over the world that get these dogs out of these really awful situations. Sometimes they just find them on the street. We just, they can be hanging from a tree and people just go up and get them. Sometimes those people that have the Galgos, sometimes they will give them to the rescue organizations. So it's interesting, because the battle here a lot is that the politics allow it to happen. Tradition allows it to happen. Money. So it's not simply that these people are assholes. It's part of the tradition, part of their culture. The Galgos, that's considered a sport. They're hunting dogs. It's considered a sport. And if the dog loses, that is tradition, to either drag it behind your vehicle through town or burn it. Or the ones that are hung from higher up were better dogs, the ones lower on the tree, because they scramble trying to get to the ground, which is 1 inch from them. It's a terrible mentality. And yes, once they start doing it that way, then you're crossing the line where tradition and politics and sports, when it becomes cruelty, it needs to go. It needs to stop. That we need to be human here, and this is completely inhumane. So you do get these rescue organizations that know that they're going to be infiltrated with these dogs at the end of the hunting season. But it does take a lot of different people, because there'll be rescue groups, for example, in the States or in Canada, that have connections with these rescue groups and get them sent to us, and whether that's from all over the world. So it takes a village, and and this is what's so cool about your listenership right now. If they want to help, they don't have to be on the ground doing that. They can be helping with coordinating transportation, obviously funding. That's huge.
Yeah.
Getting funding, spreading awareness, sharing posts,
Yeah.
writing articles, photography. You could have so many different skills that you can be a part of this solution. But yes, the people that are right there, I have got in, or I have worked with dogs. I've picked them up right from the airport, straight out of the meat market, the Korean meat market. And yeah, there's groups that just go in and they just slate, because they're all piled. These dogs are piled, hundreds of them, into like fish nets or like big netting. They'll just go chop them. And the dogs run if they can run and get them. They get them. It's amazing what people do sometimes.
I know. I've got a friend who was on a couple of episodes ago who works with Sea Shepherd, you know, and this and
I love that.
So do I. I'm constantly saying to her, you're so courageous. And, you know, there are so many people out there who do put themselves on the front line, you know, with so much risk. And
that's amazing. Paul Watson is one of my heroes for sure. Yeah. If I didn't get seasick,
yeah,
I'd be doing that.
I'm scared shitless.
I could probably use CBT to get over my seasickness, right? Here I am going on. I should probably try to do that. But yeah, seasickness is not fun.
I'm the same. And I just think it's incredibly courageous. And you're right. I help by giving money, buying T-shirts, you know, that sort of stuff.
There
so I'm sharing posts. I'm having her on the podcast like you. And, you know, so I think we've all got ways to help. You know, we don't have to be there. But when you get these dogs to work with, I mean, the trauma, they've been through exceptional trauma. And even if you say, oh, well, you know, they were hanging by a net and someone cut it and they escaped, you know, that's, well, what trauma is there in that? And other than being hung by a net and being squashed by hundreds of other dogs, but a lot of them actually see the dog in front of them get slaughtered, get put into a hot, you know, so there's a lot of these dogs are constantly watching other dogs being traumatized and murdered, you know, right in front of them. If you get any of those dogs, or when you get those dogs, how do they, like, is there much hope for them? How do they overcome that trauma? You know, I know your system works, but is it really hard to work with those traumatized ones? Extra hard?
Well, it really depends on so many different factors. It's amazing because some of them come right in, adapt right into their new life. They've lived on the street, or they've been kept in these tiny cages, all sorts of horrific things. I've got dogs and worked with dogs that were used as bait for the fighting system, which is terrible because in Northern Canada, that's unfortunately fairly common. Yes. So I do see a number of those. They are their own being. They are their own dog. They're just like people. So for instance, we're working together and usually the bond and the ability that goes quickly. That is a real part of CBT, is creating that initial bond. But some of them might come around and think, yeah, you know what? I like my house. I like my family. I'm okay walking by dogs on the street, but I don't want to go to the dog park. I'm not taking on any new dog friends right now.
Yeah.
We can get it so that dog will like perhaps maybe the dog that's part of their family, or the dog that's, you know, their best friend's dog. But aside from that, then it comes down to the people's goal. You know, is their goal for that dog to like every single dog? You know, so if it's not, I have statistics on hundreds and hundreds of dogs in the rehabilitation and the success rate and what works and what doesn't and why and the different factors and all, you know, I'm also dealing with people. I've had hundreds of dogs come into my care, but I work virtually all over the world. So I'm dealing virtually with people to work with their dogs. So you've got a number of layers there.
Yeah.
So I'm not teaching these people cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm adhering to my method in order to provide them with the information they need.
Yeah.
Excuse me, some apply it better than others. Some have, sometimes I'm thinking, be interesting if this dog was in a home with another dog or without that dog, would there be these differences? But I do have a huge success rate, absolutely. And majority, I would say over 75% of these people felt that they were going to have to rehome or euthanize their dog, and they don't. It's been 0.2% in 10 years or even more than that have.
Wow.
So there is a high success rate, but we
Yeah.
have to be careful on success. It depends on what their goal is. We have to realize that these dogs they have their own personalities as well, right? They have their own personalities and what they want to do. And if people get too many rules set in their head, well, the dog is going to be in a crate when we leave. Why? Does the dog have to be? I mean, not all dogs. The dog behavioral world has become very restrictive and rule oriented, and all dogs must do this and all dogs must do that. Even if you get a dog from puppy, you can say, we're going to walk the dog at this time, and then we're going to go to work, and then we're going to come home, and then we're going to go back to work, and the dog's going to be in a crate. Well, maybe that doesn't suit that dog's schedule. Maybe the dog doesn't want to shit at that time. You need to be flexible like you do with anything.
Yeah.
But they can absolutely come around and live in homes and live with families and be part of society and not be a risk.
Yeah.
And the ability to assess that comes with finding the method that works for them and finding what works for them, not being stuck on, if the dog does this, then that's it, they must be euthanized. Or if the dog, we need to apply a method, and then as we're applying it, as we're working with the dog, that's when your educated decisions and your assessment comes into play. Now that we've worked with the dog a bit and we've made progress, and progress is what generates patience. When people see progress and I can see this working. We're not perfect yet, Billy. We're not there, but I can see it. Then you get this patience.
Yeah.
Because people feel good and they feel it happening. That's when they can make educated assessments. Does this dog fit into our family? Speaking of getting seasick, some dogs get car sick. And if people travel all the time and they need to be in their car, you can get medication for that. That's not behavioral. Is it behavioral because it's anxiety in the car? If so, we can fix it. If it's just, if it's a physical ailment, maybe the vet can fix it or provide medication that allows the dog to be in the car. But if it's a trucker who wants to take their dog everywhere they go all the time, maybe that's not the best dog for them. Right. So there's a lot of variables, but there's a huge success rate, and they can absolutely, fit in. I love the dogs sometimes we don't even know their background. A lot of times we don't have no idea. They were just picked up by somebody who cared.
Yeah.
And ended up somewhere good. And now we're working with the dog, and that's all we know.
And
so
I think it's really important to understand that every single dog has got their own personality, and every dog has got their own set of experiences. And, and I was just thinking, when you're talking about the traumatized dogs, it is, isn't it? Because some people can have a trauma and pick themselves back up, and others they never get over it, so.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right, because we do tend to, well, not we, the society tends to go, well, a dog's a dog, they should all behave like that, and all dogs do this, and even I'm going to go right down to chickens. Like, I've had a lot of chickens in my time. Every single one of them's got their own personality. My two donkeys have got different personalities. The cows have got different personalities. They've got different voices. All my stray cats, we've got 4 stray cats, and they've all got different personalities. One wants to walk all over our heads all freaking night. But anyway, other than that.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah, you need an arc. That is so cool. I think that's great.
I'm
And the
laughing
fact you
too.
see that and you recognize that is amazing. Like in chickens,
Oh
that's
yeah.
so cool. That's so great. And
Oh,
you
very.
that in the dog world is coming around. There's a lot of talk about, they're sentient beings. They have emotional
Yeah.
intelligence. They have cognitive skills.
Yeah.
These cognitive skills are what kept them alive. These
Yeah.
cognitive skills are very important, and we need to harness them if we're going to really relate to them. So this is what I find so interesting, because the dog world is acknowledging that and saying they're their own beings and they're deserving of autonomy, yet they're continuing to push conditioning methods, which I'm not saying individual people don't recognize it, but the platform and the way that conditioning methods are designed are not, they're not designed to fall off of that, to bounce off of that. They're
Yeah.
designed to teach right from wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why they're so good with puppies. And I'm not saying that each individual person who uses conditioning methods doesn't recognize that dogs have personalities. I'm just strictly talking the platform. And so it's almost like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. They're
Yeah.
trying to stick with conditioning methods, but they're trying to recognize this emotional intelligence and this individuality. And that's what, again, of course, that's what CBT does.
Yeah.
And because it is designed to recognize preconceived thought patterns and to harness cognitive skills driving those thought patterns.
Yeah.
That's why it's so great when I'm working with people, because they see this in their dog. Like, they see it change and they see their dog just click over and reset the brain and make different, it's so cool.
I love it. And I think that, it's not just dogs. We've got to get better. And this is another one of my peeves. We've got to get better at accepting that animals are not lesser beings than us, that all animals, that they are sentient beings, they have feelings, they have emotions, that they exist for their own purposes. And yes, we can have pets and that sort of stuff, which we do, but we've got to take care of them. We've got to allow to give them the space to be themselves, to express their personalities without keeping them locked in cages. Like, sure, I put chickens away at
absolutely.
night because the foxes will kill them, but during the day, and I don't have any at the moment, let them be free, and give them as much freedom as possible, and stop just, we've got to, you were saying before, we do the traditions, with all the festivals and that sort of stuff. We've got to stop doing that as a society, as a whole, humanity as a whole, because, it's, we've been stoning women to death in, some of those countries for years. That's the way we've always done it. So that's the way we should continue to do it. No, we should actually look at our practices and say, well, we've been doing this for a long time. And is it not is it productive? Is it effective? Not that sort of stuff. Is it bloody right? Is it bloody right?
Is it humane? It's just wrong. Where are these people? I don't know how they can think that. It's just mind-boggling. And you're totally right. One that just irks the shit out of me is trophy hunting.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I swear on here? I should have asked if I could.
Yeah.
Potty mouth. Trophy hunting, that is awful. Bullfighting. These are money, tradition.
Yeah.
Sport. They'll say it's a sport. These are not a sport. A sport has two or more. All the participants are willing. They know the rules of the game. They know the outcome. They're
and it's fair.
They're willing to be there, and it's fair. These are not sports.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes way beyond dogs for sure, which is why I'm sort of at that point where I just want what I do to be out there, to be known to people, so that I can then move forward and continue to work on changing and help people. There are so many people that are very involved in animal welfare, changing laws, and they're really trying to get that done. And I'd like to have that time to spend and that effort and energy to really dive into those issues as well. because they're so huge. They're
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. And unnecessary. It does not, I constantly say it. I say it always, every chance I get to say it. We think that humans think they're the superior species. In actual fact, we're probably the lowest on the food chain because we're the only species that deliberately goes and harms and deliberately dominates. And I'm not religious at all. In fact, I can't stand it. But somewhere in the Bible it says that I believe it says, because I've never read it, is that we're the caretakers of the earth, or God will leave the earth for us to take care of the animals, or whatever the hell it says. Well, we're doing a shit job, so if everyone who thinks that they're good bloody Christians or good bloody religious people, why are we being so cruel? We should be bloody being so bloody wonderful to the animals. It really upsets me. I suppose you can tell. Yes.
It is, and it should. It is. Speaking of shirts, I mean, I have one. If your religion requires you to kill, start with yourself. Because you're not doing anybody any good. It's a terrible mentality. Whether it's on people or whether it's on animals, we just don't have that right.
No, and we've got to start quick. I think the thing with a lot of humanity, which is a very odd word, is that we keep doing the same old things, and we just say that well that's what we do, but we don't ever question. And if we're so intelligent, which I actually think we are, I just don't think we're using it right. If we're that intelligent, we need to question more. We need to keep asking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Where did this come from? Where did this belief come from? And is it actually the right thing to do? So anyway,
stop justifying and finding excuses for not accepting change and progress, because the two work hand in hand. Two work hand. It's either, well, we've always done it that way, or just coming up with justification. And again, back to the shelter system, that is just, and I'm not saying every single person in it. There's a lot of people in it that are trying and are doing good things, but the system, the way it's designed, is transactional, not transformational. It's designed to not progress and to not accept change. And it's not fair to people that are trying. It's not fair to the dogs and the cats, the animals in there. Systems need to be open-minded to solutions and progress. There needs to be. Yeah. It's not about trying to find justification for staying the same way, or justification for killing animals, or justification for being inhumane. We don't need more of that. We need people to, exactly what you said, that's what I wanted to get to, is why. People need to question why. If there are people always, back to the beginning of our conversation, surrendering their dog or giving up dogs after Christmas, or why? That's how innovations happen. That's how progress happens. That's how solutions are created, because people dive deeper. They don't just, really? Okay, that's interesting. Or it must be somebody's fault, or let's blame this person. Really? Why don't we ask why? What's really going on? What's really going on here? And when we find that out, then we can find solutions.
And I think we need a lot more voices at the table than the typical old white man, just constantly being there, too many of them. Anyway, that's another peeve. Now, listen, you do so you do this remotely online, so anybody can reach out to you and do some work with their dog. So that's fantastic. So before I ask you I've absolutely loved this. You are just bloody fantastic. I love what you do. I've loved this conversation. Of course, I love all these really, really conversations where you can dig deep. But where can people find you?
Well, my website is www.upwarddogology.com. And on there, I do have also I'm open-minded to connecting with, if anyone was offended on any of this, or if you are in the, the shelter world or anything, reach out. I mean, I'm happy to, it's all about awareness and connecting and collaborating in order to get it right. It's not about being right, it's about getting it right. So let's do that, right? Let's work together to do that. So on that website, there is the information for the one-on-one training, virtual or live, and then also for just connecting with anyone in the industry. And then I'm on LinkedIn, that is Billie Groom, and Twitter is Upward Dogology, Facebook is Upward Dogology. I'm everywhere. I have a podcast as well.
I do.
Yeah, dog training disrupted by Upward Dogology.
Yeah.
So that talks more about, and I've spoken at lots of conferences, Animal Behavior Society conference and Animal Science and Veterinary Medicine conference, and those are on my link tree, which is Upward Dogology, and you know, all the articles I'm in and stuff. So if people just want to research it more on their own, I appreciate that, or you can reach out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, and I'll put the links in there. And by the way, everybody, you should reach out to Billie and to collaborate, or to even if we've offended you, because just don't forget, I'm probably the one that offended you, not Billie. She's been the one that's been defending.
I'm always creating waves. Yeah, I don't care. Thanks.
I'm the one that's saying, and you're going, oh yes, but yes.
No, you're awesome.
So
you're
don't
awesome.
be offended by Billie if I'm the one that's shitting you. But anyway, Billie, I have loved this. It's just been such an honor speaking with you. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes anyway, so people can get hold of you. But I've absolutely.
Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate this opportunity. It's been a great conversation. You're amazing. I love what you do. Thanks so much, Karen.
Well, ditto back to you. I think you're just bloody wonderful. So hopefully we'll catch up again soon. And
absolutely.
You have a lovely night.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. See ya.